Alright, another entry into the KLaX build file. Today we are going to be retrofitting a Kickstarter onto a 2009 Kawasaki KLX250 that's already been big bored up to a Bill Blue 351. So my lovely head mechanic here, the wife, because she's better with fiddly bits than I am, is going to be assembling this assembly. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to put the kickstart shaft and all of its requisite gearing and stuff together, and then we're going to put together the idler gear and all of its shirt clips and bearings, and then we're going to go outside and take the bottom end of the bike apart and put it together. I'm filming this because so far I haven't seen anyone actually film or document the assembly of the kickstart shaft. So we're starting with how many different pieces?
A lot.
Please count them.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah.
So a dozen separate parts all come. And the kit that we got, every part was individually bagged and labeled with a part number that matched the diagram. I know some people have got kits with loose parts and unlabeled shirt clips and all that, but we got lucky. All right, so assembly begins. That's the shaft, and that's the engagement gear. What's that part you just put on called?
The gear spur kick.
All right, so that's the kickstart engagement gear that's going to go off of the clutch shaft.
Just make sure 315 is B.
This is the first shirt clip.
No, it's just a washer. 480. This is the shirt clip.
So then this is the first shirt clip. So this holds the spur gear on the kickstart shaft.
Great, now I gotta do this with no pliers.
Would you like a pair of pliers?
Yes.
All right, we went and collected the right tool for this job. So now with some snap ring pliers, shirt clip's going to go on. Ta-da.
Okay, where were
All right, so there's a detent or something somewhere that's got to line up with, if I remember right. If you look at this thing, somewhere on there is a detent. Okay, I'm going to try to get this in camera. I don't know if I can, so be still, because I'm working on focus here. Be still. Try to get it on focus. Come on, focus. I can't really focus on it, guys, sorry, but there, at the back of this shaft right here, there's a tiny little detent. Thank you for calling it out with the probe. And on this piece, on the ratchet, there's another equally small detent. Now go ahead and line them up. If you got the detents lined up, does it too thin or not?
you just turn the gear and it'll too thin.
So, but the detents are lined up.
Yes.
Okay? And then you put on the spring. It goes
The spring. I think it matters how it goes on.
okay.
And the other B.
It's just a washer, and then there's another chair clip behind that.
And then, yes. Then the other 480. sure that it's
Max, please stop.
seated, which it is.
Alright, so that's the shaft together at that point.
Now we need to do the other side. And then there's another washer that goes on the front.
Before you install it?
Yeah.
But don't put it on now because it'll fall off. Right? So then that goes on there before it goes into the crankcase.
Yes.
Okay. The other side goes the return spring and the bushing, right? I'm pulling this from my head.
And then there's a washer that goes on the end.
Okay, what goes on first? Is the spring right on that bushing?
There's a hole.
Alright, so let me see the spring for a second. Alright, so the spring's got a tab on it, and that goes into the hole on the shaft. And this is where you've got to cock it when you mount it. It rides that far down?
Well, it'll go up and put it in.
Okay. And then the nylon bushing thing there goes inside of that?
It's not clear which way it goes. I think it goes this way. Oh, yeah.
So that basically holds the spring up.
If you look, then there's a slot in it. That
Okay, there's a cutout that goes on the spring.
Yes.
Okay. And then that washer holds the nylon bushing in.
And then we're done with that.
Is there a church clip or anything that goes on that side of it?
No,
No?
there is not.
So that just rides. And what holds all that in, I wonder, when we get there. Alright, so now we're putting together the idler gear.
There are no sure clips on that either. Oh, there is one.
There should be one church clip.
Yeah.
Because there's the idler gear, then there's like a washer and a church clip, and that's what holds it on the idler shaft.
Yeah, but we can't put that on until
We're at the bike.
Yeah. I will open it though.
Okay. So now the step is, we've done some prep in the warm house and the shop is getting warmed up, so we're going to go out and we're going to drain oil and coolant and start disassembling the bike. Right?
Yes.
That's our next step. Give everybody a thumbs up and a wave. Say bye. She's so happy to be on camera, you guys. Alright, we're going to do the prep work to do a Kickstarter modification on a 2009 Kawasaki KLX250SF. It's already got a Bill Blue 351 big bore kit in it. And I've just been having trouble with cold starting. It's been freezing around here. So I'm going to add the Kickstarter as a way to prep and like prime, and also as an apocalypse oh poop moment. So tools we're going to need for this is going to be a 14 millimeter and a 10 millimeter, because step one is we're going to drain oil and coolant. If you've done maintenance on your bike, you know what this looks like, but in case you haven't, here it goes. So first we're going to do oil. I did warm the bike up a little bit, so that maybe the oil flows a little better. Alright, we got the oil plug cracked. Got a drain pan set. Alright, and the oil is on drain. Put that in our parts bin real quick. While the oil's draining, we're going to go ahead and drain the coolant as well. So the oil is a 14 millimeter, which we're done with now. We got our drain bucket for our coolant. And that's a 10 mil, so we're going to go ahead and drain that as well. Alright, so again, oil and coolant are finishing draining, so we're going to talk through what we're about to do. So what we're going to do next is we're going to remove the water pump housing, which are the 3 8mm bolts. Take that housing off and the impeller. We're going to take the rear brake lever off, which is just a cotter pin through in the backside and it comes right out. We're going to take the right foot peg off, which is 2 14mm nuts. There's one on the inside, on the outside, and one on the inside of the frame rail. After we do that, we're going to disconnect the clutch cable from the plunger, and we're going to take out the top 2 bolts in the clutch cover, just the top 2, this one and this one, because they're the ones that go through the clutch cover into the side case. Then we're going to have to remove this oil banjo bolt right here above the oil filter housing. We're going to leave the oil filter housing in place. We're going to go remove that banjo bolt. Then we're going to go around the case and remove all the base nuts or base bolts that hold the case cover on. And again, these are all 8mm. This is 8mm. This is all 8mm. So you're going to need 8mm for all of this, and for the foot peg, you're going to need a 14mm. And over here, you're just going to need a pair of needle nose pliers and ginger loving care to save that cotter pin if you want to, or get another one. All right, so that's next step. Okay, using a little camera 2 here. So, got the foot rest off. Again, 2 14s. We got the rear brake lever off. It's just a cotter pin that holds the pivot and a cotter pin that holds the clevis. Take those off, and then you take off the return spring and the brake light switch swing. I don't know if we need to take the brake light switch housing off just yet to clear this. Impeller cover off and just kind of tucked up to the side, and there's your impeller. Them bits is sharp. Watch out. 10mm bolt or nut on the end of the impeller shaft. You can break it loose by hand. Some people use an air impact, but I managed to get mine broken loose just by hand. So we're going to go ahead and try and take that. We're going to take that shaft off, and then we're going to start working around the rest of it. Now this is the gasket, the smaller gasket that you get. So you need to make sure and clean these surfaces up before you redo it, because as you can see, there's just a bunch of smuts on there. It's a good time too to check your impeller. Make sure you don't have any broken flanges or fins. Alright, so impeller's off, and you see the impeller shaft is there. Most of the gasket went with the cover. Now on the cover, you don't have to disconnect this if you don't want to so far. Don't forget there's a journaling pin right there that's going to go in that hole right there. So don't lose that, but you can kick that over out the way. Alright, so I think our next step should be, we need to do the clutch connections. So now I'm debating about whether I want to honestly go ahead and take the clutch off, cover off, and take the clutch out before I take the rest of the case apart, or if I want to take the rest of the case apart and then do it. So we'll see in a second. I'll surprise you. Alright, so skipped a little bit forward. We went ahead and we took off the clutch cable retaining clip and took it loose from the, I'll talk in a second, what is the word I want to say, the actuator of the clutch, whatever the hell that pin is called. Fell out of my head, sorry. Brake light switch, we had to take, you need to go ahead and take that mount off so you can get it to one cover bolt over here. And remember that on this cover bolt there's the retention points for all the springs. Other than that, you just kind of go around, take all the cover screws off. Banjo bolt right here, it's a 12mm. Remember there are crush washers under and above, so don't lose those. You really should replace those when you reassemble, but I'm not the boss of you. Alright, so everything should be off. I'm going to hand the camera off for a second, and we're going to try to take the cover off. Wish me luck. Here we go. Come on. Come on, baby. There we go. And right over the impeller shaft, and we're out. This is the first time we've had this apart this far. And we're bleeding! Alright. I don't see anything of great concern here that we didn't know already. Impeller bearing seems okay. Clean this up, make sure all the oil pass and journalings are good. Make sure your journal pins are present and you know where those are. One stayed in the case, one stayed in the case, one's in the cover. Gasket material looks pretty good. but we're going to mess with that later when we do cleanup. Alright, so there we go. That's your impeller drive. That's your cam chain. There's your clutch and clutch pack. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take the plunger out of the clutch before I lose it. Alright, clutch plunger, you got that. And this is the bolt right here that holds the basket on. I've already done the Babbet springs and everything here, replaced the clutch plates, so everything seems pretty good. I'm not going to worry too much about that. And while I'm here, I'm going to take a look at the oil screen. I don't see any bits in it. That's good. We're going to pull that out and clean that up. So we're going to do some cleanup and do some preparation work for getting the Kickstarter mounted. So down to the clutch basket, we got the bolt off, or nut off. It's a 22 millimeter, and you're going to want to use an impact driver. Got that off, and now we should be able to just whoop, clutch pack right off. There is a washer that sits behind the nut right here. See it? That's your gotcha. You got to make sure you keep track of that. So clutch pack is off, washer and retention nut. Handing that off to the boss. Got it? Okay. So once again, everything looks pretty good. Alright, so like you see on the big camera, clutch pack just came out. So this is the other side of your crank, right here, running the cam drive and running the impeller drive gear. This is your clutch pack right here. Now there is like a bushing right here that rides on the transfer case. Do not lose that in this process. Make sure it goes in all the way down past the splines and sits down. Wouldn't hurt to clean some of this stuff up. Alright, so now we're to the Kickstarter install. This is where the Kickstarter shaft is going to go. And this is where what I think they're calling the idler gear is going to sit. And there is a bushing there already. So we're going to have to pop that chur clip off and take that bushing off. That bearing off. And then we got to work at getting the idler gear and the kickstart shaft put in. And that's mostly going to be on the Melee. Because I break stuff, I don't put stuff together. Alright, we've been fighting with this, but here's how you do it. When you put the shaft in, the cam on the backside interfaces with a casing. It needs to be at about the 6 o'clock position, and so does the spring retention end. Once you have it seated in and got it interface with the idler gear, go ahead and bring the spring around about a 1/2 to 3/4 of a turn counterclockwise. It's less than easy, but it's doable. Takes a little bit of grunt work. And get the free running end of the spring into the retention point. It's going to give me a second to get it seated. And as you can see from the wife's hands, it's very important that you bleed on it. Because if you're not bleeding on it, you're not working. Alright, we'll get this spring seated and we'll show you a test. Alright, so we got everything together. We got the spring about a 1/2 from 6 o'clock to about 11 o'clock back into the hole. And here's a test fit of the spring return. Again, not letting everything fly, but she's going to push it down and she's going to let it go and it's going to come back up. And it's pushing itself back up, which is what that spring does. Super cool. That means a Kickstarter has been installed. And now we just got to reassemble the rest of the bike around it.